I'm Lin-Manuel Miranda, and you're listening to Hard Knock Life.
Welcome to Hard Knock Life. I'm Keith Chops.
I'm Brittany Monet.
I am back. Thank you for holding it down the last
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun, but I obviously missed you.
Well, I didn't get to share some of my thoughts on Stranger Things, and I know that you were talking about, spoilers for people who haven't watched all episodes of Stranger Things. You had an issue with one of the character deaths in the finale. I won't say I disagree, but I don't think that dude deserves any more screen time. He got what he deserved. I'm glad he got split in half. I don't need to see his face no more. So I was happy with the way he went out. He went out like a little punk, and I'm glad.
It wasn't even like, I don't even think it was like a little like punk, because there was like, it was just one of those deaths where it was like so quick that like I felt if you looked away in the wrong moment, which when my aunt finally watched the episode, she didn't even realize he died. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it was so like, what was the point of having him be there and be so antagonistic, and then like just to kill him off in a death that was just like I said, it was so easy like to miss, and it ended up being that way. So it was just like, I don't know. Like, yes, I think he definitely didn't need to make it past the season, but I just wanted it a little bit more like dramatic, or him realizing that he was actually stupid and wrong, and then like still dying. Like, I would have liked something more like that.
No, I just let him go out like a little bitch. That's all I care.
I mean, he could have still died like he could have had Vecna tear him up. Just like actually have Vecna be like, you're dumb. You didn't. Like, I killed Chrissy. Eddie had nothing to do with it.
Right.
I don't know. Just
speaking of Eddie, my man Joseph Quinn has become quite the internet celebrity. Is he someone that you're because I know you have a type. I'm not exactly sure he fits into your type.
I think he's cute and I see the appeal, but it's not just quite there for me.
So you're no Doja Cat is what you're saying.
No, like I don't, it's so funny because I feel like Joe Curry is kind of the opposite of like my like usual type, and yet I find Joe Curry to be like very, very cute, and he would be the guy.
Well, Steve is Steve.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about like, I don't know what it is. Like, I feel like people would think that I would be more into like actually wanting to date someone who looks like Eddie, but for some reason on Stranger Things it's Steve. That's my dude.
I'm sure I'm not the only person who said this, but if the MCU did want to somehow bring back Tony Stark, could we go with Joseph Quinn replacing RDJ? I mean, he looks just like a young Robert Downey Jr., doesn't he?
Maybe.
No,
young Robert Downey Jr., sorry to him, but was not that attractive.
No, I mean, I'm not just in terms of like the whole time we were watching Stranger Things, I was just like, he and especially like when he's doing his interviews and he doesn't have the wig and stuff, like he looks like RDJ. If he grew a goatee, he could be a variant of Tony Stark without having to pay Robert Downey Jr. salary. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. It's if the MCU gods want to do it, I think Joseph Quinn could be your budget Tony Stark.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I would have to like, I've seen him out of like costume as Eddie. So yeah, maybe if he did have a little like goatee, but
yeah, I don't know. It's the eyes. He's got the RDJ eyes to me. I don't know. Okay. Anyway, speaking of the MCU and their billion-dollar franchise, we are coming off the weekend of Thor: Love and Thunder. Number one movie in the world, just made $143 million. It's got some mixed reviews at best. I'll share my thoughts in a minute, but I know some of our friend group have had different opinions about the movie. Where do you land on the Love and Thunder discourse?
So I actually really enjoyed it. I don't know what it is. I've seen almost every Taika film except for The Boy, which I think was like his first one. That's the only one I haven't seen, but everything else I've seen him do or like even executive produce, I'm like, I like it. So far he hasn't done anything that I've been like, yeah, no, this isn't for me. But I understand that his style is not for everyone. So I'm not gonna be one of those people like, oh, just because you don't like him, you hate fun. Like I that's no, I just get it. He doesn't like work with everyone, but I really liked it. I had fun. I was the only person who recognized the after credits person that they show.
Yeah, we'll talk about that because I not being a Ted Lasso guy, it took me a minute. I had to look him up.
I knew right away, and it was because I was expecting Henry Cavill.
Me too.
I talked about this.
I was hoping it was Henry Cavill. So, spoilers for Thor: Love and Thunder. If you haven't watched it, turn off the podcast, go watch it, and then come back and turn the podcast on. But the mid-credit sequence we'll talk about first, and then we'll talk about the movie.
Yes.
As we know, Russell Crowe plays. I did not expect the way Russell Crowe was going to play Zeus either, and that was a big surprise. But Russell Crowe,
I loved that he actually did an actual when there was a couple parts where it sounded a little bit more like Borat, but for the most part, I
wanted to ask you about was his Greek offensive, but
no, it was pretty on point. And then when he said yes us, I was like, yeah, this is my movie.
So he plays Zeus in a very comedic way, and you think he dies because Thor essentially throws a lightning bolt through his chest, and he does the Darth Maul tumble off the balcony.
Yep.
And then the mid-credit sequence shows, of course, I mean, Zeus, he's not going to die by his own thunderbolt. The only thing that can kill gods is the necro sword. And
yes.
So anyway, he's alive, and he's talking to someone off screen and says, I want you to avenge, me basically, and kill Thor. And he's like, yes, father.
Also basically make gods not seem like such a joke, because when did we become such a joke?
Right. Like superheroes are the people's gods now, and we're the real gods. Anyway, and then it pans over to the Marvel version of Hercules, which is a very popular character in the comic. And it's Brett Goldstein.
Yes.
What's his character's name on Ted Lasso?
Roy Kent.
Which the crowd was like, woohoo, and I was like, wait, who's that? Because I wasn't expecting, but I was hoping for Henry Cavill, just because there were rumors that Henry Cavill would be Hercules, and I just think it would be like the ultimate troll to the DC movies.
Yeah, so did I. Yeah, that's what I thought too, especially since the way DC is now handling, they're obviously using a body double, but they're not actually using him. So It's just it felt like, okay, it's gonna be him.
And of course, Russell Crowe was Jor-El in the DCEU, so it would have been perfect. And Henry's got, I don't know if Brett Goldstein is naturally hairy.
Yes, he is.
Okay, but Henry Cavill's got the hairy chest, which is an iconic Marvel Hercules.
And the way they were just panning up, I was like, okay, this is gonna be Henry Cavill. This is gonna be Henry Cavill. Show his face, and then they showed his face. So I'm mind you, I'm the only person in my theater who recognized him, or at least vocally loud enough. Because I wasn't expecting it. I shouted much louder than I meant to. I was like, Brett. Really loud.
Because I think it had it's a double thing. Because I think some people who are not versed in Marvel comics, it was like the Charlize Theron Clea thing in Doctor Strange. They don't necessarily know who that character is, right? Until he says Hercules. And then I think for a lot of mainstream folks, Hercules isn't necessarily a Marvel character. You know what I mean? It's oh, they're bringing in the actual Hercules into this. And so I think there was that bit of confusion. And I think, the Brett Goldstein, as great as he is on Ted Lasso, I suppose, again, I don't watch Ted Lasso, but I know he's got a big fan base. He's not the biggest name to elicit, I think, the kind of recognition that a Charlize Theron or a Harry Styles. That also reminds me, is Marvel doing anything with these mid-credits cameos? Because it's 3 in a row now, and we're are they going to do anything with these people? Is Charlize Theron really going to be in the MCU? Is Harry Styles really in the MCU? Or are they just one-off after credit sequences?
I think Brett will, just because Ted Lasso is ending with season 3. For those who don't know, unfortunately, that is, as soon as I saw that announcement, I was like, somebody must have got swooped up by something. And then there was already rumors that Brett was going to be in the MCU, but I was like, okay, but the character he plays on Ted Lasso, Roy Kent, to me fits more of Wolverine.
See, that I can see, because his physique, let me ask you about his physique too, because the photos I've seen of Brett Goldstein, even in character on Ted Lasso, he's not that jacked.
He's not ripped like Henry Cavill, but he's an in shape dude.
Right. But he's kind of thin. He's got a thin build.
he's thinner. Yeah, he plays a soccer player, so like
Right.
they're gonna be a little bit thinner. And so unless you're like a goalie or something, you're more likely to be thinner as a soccer player. I mean, he usually I think was he a forward on his character?
Oh, see, now you're basically speaking Greek to me because like not only do I not watch Ted Lasso, I don't know jack shit about soccer.
So I actually used to play soccer, or football. And forward is, I don't know what would it be the equivalent to in another sport.
Like a forward in basketball, like
typically
a bigger guy than the guard.
Yeah, you're usually the person who goes and tries to like score the goals basically. And so that's kind of like I think more of his position, or was he a halfback?
Again, you're losing me. You're losing the audience. Like,
yeah, sorry.
Remember when Dom and I were talking about basketball and like half the audience tuned out? I think that's the same thing is happening right now.
Yeah. So yeah,
but like, so do you think like was that his actual physique? Like, or was he like CGI'd? Because he didn't look natural.
I think it could have been CGI'd because I was definitely thinking it was going to be Henry Cavill. I'm like, oh yeah, that's Henry Cavill. And then that's why I was so shocked. Not that Brett's not a good actor, because he's literally my favorite on Ted Lasso, but I was just like, what? Brett?
Yeah.
Like I was so mind blown. I was like, it's going to be Henry. This is Henry. Just show me his face already. It's Henry Cavill. And then, yeah. But no, I'm really excited to see him play Hercules. I don't know much about actual Hercules in the comics, so I don't know if he's a grumpy type of like dude, because I feel like
I thought he was goofy, but then again, my real only like connection to the Hercules in the comics, I mean, he's been around for as long as Thor's been around in the comics, and as like, even though these are mythological characters, the Marvel version is always its own thing. But my kind of only real experience with Hercules is in Greg Pak's Amadeus Cho comics. And so Hercules and Amadeus Cho, like he's a lot, my recollection, he's a lot goofier.
Okay.
But so is comics Thor and the movie Thor, and we'll talk about it, like are very different. And that's kind of, I think, where some of the discontent about this particular movie is coming from. So I'm with you. I had a good time watching it.
Yes.
I will say that like, even though the movie was only an hour and 59 minutes, there were parts of it that I did feel like dragged, and it felt longer than it actually was. And I think that's kind of my biggest critique. I didn't actually have a problem with the humor because, like you said, the Taika Waititi stuff, that was the best part of Ragnarok, right? Like his sensibility in the movie. And I appreciated that. I think my main issue with Love and Thunder is that to me, it just felt a little unfocused. Like I kind of wanted more Jane.
Yeah.
And more explanation about like her place in the movie, especially if she's going to die at the end, like give us more of like, instead of just dropping in on like, oh, here's Jane and she's had cancer. And now like, I feel like it was relying too much on people who have like comics backstory and not enough like in the movie itself. You know what I mean? But to me, that was the biggest, like, I feel like it made the movie a little too jumpy for me, like jumpy in the sense that like it didn't feel coherent. It was like, here's all the Gore the God Butcher stuff, here's Thor stuff with the Guardians, here's like Jane, and they didn't really, I guess I just wanted more Jane, or like give Jane her own movie.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been my preference, but I didn't hate it. It's not my favorite. It's probably like, I think for a lot of the recent MCU movies, they're all kind of like jumbled up in the middle. Like none have been like my absolute favorite, and I haven't hated any of them, but they're all kind of just starting to like coalesce in the middle of my like rankings. And that's kind of, I think, I mean, you're 29 movies into the franchise, they're not all going to be like home runs, I guess. Yeah,
no, I've actually enjoyed probably phase 4 more than most people, I would say. The only things that I really just am like not really into watching again would honestly be Black Widow, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and What If. There's only maybe 1 or 2 episodes that I would watch again, and then WandaVision was good up until like I think the finale for me. Yeah. So those are really the only things that I'm just like I don't care to really see again, unfortunately.
Well, but they're also TV shows too, so it's kind of like
shows, so it's a little different with phase 4, I think.
And I think that might be the problem, is like there's just so much content in phase 4 that it is starting to feel a little bloated. And I think that's kind of like where I am. And at the same time, I've always been of a mind that like you don't have to like lead into the next thing, like the continuity stuff and like the telling one long story. I know that's been some people's complaint. I'm less concerned about that anymore. You know, I think the MCU is growing to a place where it doesn't have to be like one long running narrative. You know, like you can let the directors put their stamps on the movies, and I'm cool with that. Like that's the one thing I appreciate about Eternals was that it felt like a Chloe Zhao movie, and everyone else complained that it didn't feel like an MCU movie. And I'm like, that's what I liked about it. Like shoehorning the MCU stuff is kind of like I feel like where I'm starting to lose it a little bit because like you said with WandaVision, the first 3/4 of it, it was like wildly different from anything the MCU's ever done. And then the last episode was like, oh yeah, that's right. You know, and the same thing with Doctor Strange. I appreciated like the Sam Raimi stuff, not so much kind of like the puzzle pieces to make it fit into the MCU stuff, you know. So I think that's kind of where we are with the MCU, like writ large, I guess, right?
Yeah, I guess people are trying to figure out where it's going, but I feel like people forget that in phase 1 that it took a while for you to realize that they were building up to Thanos. Like you kind of figured it out by the time obviously you got to the big team up movie, but there has not yet been a big team up movie from all the different characters we've seen yet. So and they have to remember some people, especially since they were characters that started in like later phases of the MCU, like they still have their like stories, you know. The only reason why Thor is getting a breath of fresh air is because Ragnarok and Infinity War and Endgame like changed the way people like Thor now, you know. Because even though I like Thor 1, a lot of people didn't really care for Thor 1 besides Loki, and then
everybody hates Thor 2.
Yeah, that one's just like bull. So like, you know, Ragnarok was kind of supposed to be like it was supposed to be his own final film,
because all of the originals were only getting trilogies, right? Like Captain America was a trilogy, Iron Man was a trilogy, and they never get like the Captain of America 4 that's being announced is a Sam Wilson movie. Like so much of the Chris Evans has to like tweet out that like I'm not Captain America anymore, guys. You know, it's a completely different movie. It's not really Captain America 4, it's Sam Wilson Captain America 1. Thor is the only one that's like there's potentially like more movies featuring this version of Thor. So.
Thor has gone on a whole different, and I know some people are like, okay, they need to like change up and not have like Taika do Thor 5. And you know, I wouldn't be mad if they brought back Kenneth Branagh and was it Zach Penn who were the main creators behind the first one. I would be okay with that because I genuinely really liked the first Thor, and I think that if you are gonna try to bring a little bit more of a serious approach to the gods, then I think that Kenneth Branagh and Zach Penn are the perfect people to bring back, because I think Thor 1 is really great and people should maybe rewatch it because it's a lot more fun than I think people realize. But I think it's just a lot of people don't like that Thor because he's so serious and like comes off as more of a dude bro, I think, in that one. That's why people don't like Thor.
But I think to your point, like the goofiness has always been there because there are scenes even in Thor 1, like when he's throwing the glass down on the ground, or when the Warriors 3 show up at the diner, like there's the goofiness was always inherent. And I think you know Ragnarok, and not just Ragnarok, but I think even with Avengers kind of tapping into Chris Hemsworth's like own personality more and not, you know, having to play this like Shakespearean character, you know, it was like let him be goofy, and that's kind of where we are. And again, like my issues with this movie have not, like I think 90% of the complaints about Love and Thunder are about how like funny it is or how campy it is. That is not my issues with that, is not at all. Like I think the performances are actually really good. I just kind of feel like the movie itself was a bit unfocused. And that's my main complaint with it. Like I wanted them to like either be about like as funny as Russell Crowe was in the movie, I feel like the whole Omnipotent City stuff, like I didn't think any of that was necessary for like the story, because what ultimately they just needed the lightning bolt, you know. And what I thought was really weird, it was like there's a guy going around killing gods, and essentially they killed Zeus. So it's like you're not really making your case, y'all. Like we're preventing the killing of the gods by killing the most like famous god, you know. It was just a little confusing, and then like they kind of brushed it off. I was like, shouldn't all the gods be after you now, you know? But
they definitely should have had some type of, maybe that's a problem. They were trying to not do such like they probably messed up by killing him in a way, and they're like, we can't have them all go after him in this movie, so that's why they're probably going to do Thor 5 when that is where he's going to face the consequences, obviously, as we know now, because the after credit scene. But I agree that I wish we had more Jane.
Yeah,
I do like it, but I do think that there are issues with it, so I'm not
Sure.
saying it's a perfect film. I do think that Valkyrie was very much kind of pushed to the
Yes.
side.
That was my complaint number 2. Yes.
I figured what happened with them bringing Jane back. I was like, oh, bringing Jane back, Valkyrie's kind of gonna get sidelined. I loved the Rock, Dwayne the Rock joke. That was great. No, but I hope that actually they will...
I just got that. Jesus Christ.
Really?
It went over my head. I didn't even catch that. Yeah, some dude named Dwayne. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm a big dummy. I did not catch that in the theater.
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you, Taika. That's the kind of joke I would appreciate, and it went over. I genuinely, sincerely thought Korg met a guy named Dwayne, and I didn't even put Dwayne the Rock together.
That sounds like that's hilarious.
Yeah, that is hilarious. It would be even more hilarious if the Rock actually like did the motion capture.
It would be, yes. But yeah, no, I do think that we need a little bit more Valkyrie, maybe give her own project, and please call her by her actual name, Brunhild, because like, and I get maybe you feel weird that a Black woman has that name, but like calling her Valkyries, like when they're all Valkyries, is kind of like, yeah, I mean, she is the quote unquote main Valkyrie, but that's still not her actual name.
And then like Jane comes back as a Valkyrie in the comics, doesn't she?
I'm not too caught up on what is going on with Jane in the comics, so I don't know.
Pretty sure like Jane dies of cancer and Odin brings her back as a Valkyrie.
Okay, and that's what I had a question with her after credit scene. I was like, very interesting. Why would you show me this if neither her or Heimdall aren't going to be able to come back?
Yeah. Why you can't bring Idris back and then like, oh, that was it. He's never coming back again, right? Speaking of Idris, real quick, when the hell did he have a kid?
Yeah, that's what I was like. I was like, oh, okay. There was so much that I feel like happened that I was like, I didn't know this. All right. And I didn't realize Meek was a woman.
Yeah.
And then her cute little lady business suit outfit thing she had on. Yeah, that I didn't realize. The Infinity Cones thing was like funny, but at the same time, I'm like, that's also kind of like traumatic. Why would you like? Right.
I do like the return of Matt Damon and Luke Hemsworth.
Yes, that was great. And then
Melissa
McCarthy as Hela. Yeah, that was great. I kind of hope that they find a way to bring back Hela still, because she was so great. But I do have to say that both Kate Blanchett and Christian Bale have been really some of the better like villains.
Let's talk about Christian Bale, because everyone's done the joke. You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become an MCU villain, because he's the second Batman to be transported to the MCU. I'm like, you got to get Ben Affleck as an MCU villain. You got to get George Clooney as an MCU villain just to complete the cycle.
I would love that, especially Ben Affleck playing some type of like villain. And
again, like if they had cast Henry Cavill as Hercules and brought Ben Affleck in as some MCU villain, I can't think of one right now, that would just be the ultimate troll.
I was trying to think of like, is there a Daredevil villain that Ben Affleck could play? Because I would love that. I'm one of the few people actually really do love the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie.
Yeah.
I still have the DVD. But yeah, no, I would love to see if they find
all the Batman. Make all the Batman MCU villains. Like it'd be funny if Robert Pattinson shows up.
That's what I was gonna say. Even Robert Pattinson at some point, like I don't know, that would be.
I mean, if Barry Keoghan can go back and forth, like Robert Pattinson can go back and forth. But what did you think of like? It's one thing to have Christian Bale like play a villain. It's another thing to have like a former Batman, like he's making his return to like the comic book movie, which to me that's the wild part. Like after being Batman, that he's in a comic book movie again. I wish I had the opportunity to interview him, because it's just like, how is that going from like a Christopher Nolan Batman movie to wearing like gray makeup and like fighting it all CG? The one thing I think I liked the most is, as I hated the Omnipotent City stuff, but I loved the black and white fight.
Yes,
at the end,
that whole entire sequence in the gray, black and white, whatever. It was really nice. And I just thought Christian's performance was amazing.
Yeah.
Which Christian's one of those people that I really like them as an actor, but don't know if I like them as a person.
Sure, right. And
You know,
you don't
I
have
don't know, but
to.
I don't know. It could just be like the way like also sometimes media tries to trick you, make you think a certain narrative of certain people. So
Right.
he might not actually be that bad.
Well, and there was that whole like 10 years ago, that whole like on the set of Terminator where he's yelling at the guy about the lights, and I mean, I think it's kind of, you're right though, it is difficult now because when that came out back in like 2012 or whatever, it was almost like it was funny, like, oh, look at this like actor just getting real pissed. And now like any kind of toxic workplace is just viewed differently nowadays. It's also ironic because this played before Love and Thunder in my theater, but like there's a movie called Amsterdam that's coming out starring Christian Bale. And like literally everyone is kind of probably one of the most stacked casts of all time. Margot Robbie.
Oh yes, yeah. I saw the trailer before that too.
Yeah, but it's a David O. Russell movie, and David O. Russell has also been called out for his toxic sets.
Which sucks because that movie actually does look kind of fun, but
it looks really good.
I was like, okay, if it gets nominated for like award season,
which it will. I mean, it's playing for that audience, 100%.
It definitely is. But sometimes there's certain movies that look like that, but then they don't make it into that realm of movies. So I'm like, I'll wait to see if it gets nominated for Best Picture and for Oscars, because sometimes you can make all the other award circuit stuff, but not the Oscars. So we'll see. Yeah. I'll hold off on that one. But Christian Bale is great.
Where does Gore the God Butcher like rank for you?
And villains, at least from like this phase, I would say he's pretty up there. Him and Tony Leung were just like, I think they're my favorite too so far from like the newer crop of villains we've gotten in this phase. Yeah, I don't know. They were both so great for their different reasons, and it was nice to see Christian do something where he wasn't using that weird Batman voice, which I've seen him in other stuff, but
I think there was a Batman. This isn't the question I would love to ask Taika. I think there was a Batman Easter egg when he and his daughter are dying and she's drawing on all the rocks in the beginning of the movie. One of the drawings, I swear to God, looks like a Batman. I did not notice that. Whenever I see it again, I will have to look for the rock. It's toward, I think, on the right side of the rock. I swear to God, she drew a Batman with wings.
I was trying to look at everything that like she drew, and I couldn't, so I missed that probably. But his performance is just really great, and I kind of loved like the whole like, this is something that probably, there are people who do pray to their God or their belief system for help and then feel like they're being answered. So I feel like it's such a very like easy character to get behind, which is why it's so easy to like just basically root for him, and Christian's already a great actor.
Yeah, I mean, I think my only issue with the Gore the God Butcher storyline was I wish they showed more of him like murdering the other guy. Like I know there's that whole sequence with like the distress calls, but I think to your point, like with Stranger Things, it was so fast, like you didn't even really know what we were looking at.
Yeah.
And I wanted to follow Gore because I thought the scene where his daughter dies and he meets his actual God, and then like the God's an asshole.
Yeah.
Like that was really, I think that was one of the best scenes, right? Because it was like you saw it was well acted on Christian's part, because you saw him go from devout to vengeful. I wish it explained the necrosword a little bit better too, because it was just like, where'd that come from? And if they're like celebrating that he killed the dude with the necrosword, they should have got rid of the necrosword. But anyway, but I wanted to see him like go after a couple more gods and see how ruthless and brutal he is before we got to Asgard, because it was just it felt like too much of a leap to go from like, how long has he been killing gods, because it feels like they just found out about it and he's already at Asgard. It just, to me, was a little, some of the editing choices in this movie were a little.
I think 4 editors on this film.
Yeah, and I think Taika said he shot like 4 hours worth of movie, and it was like he just kind of like found it in the edit. And I think there are parts of it where it feels like they were just kind of like piecing stuff together, where they might have had more. Not that I wanted a 3-hour or 4-hour Thor movie, but like I feel like they sacrificed some story just to get other things in. And I think Jane sacrificed a lot. Valkyrie sacrificed a lot and Gore's sacrificed a lot,
Yeah, I mean the Guardians, they didn't take up as much of the film, which
Yeah.
like I think a lot of us thought they would.
I thought half the movie would be a Guardians movie, so I was pleasantly surprised that it
Yes, which
wasn't as much as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I'm glad that that wasn't a huge thing, but I do agree that there are certain things that got sacrificed for, I don't know, maybe some jokes that didn't need to be there.
Yeah.
Like they definitely could have took out that little quick scene of Matt Damon be like, how do we work this into a play? Like that could have been...
I would have done it the other way. I think it would have been funny if we didn't see them in costume, but then they just showed up and said, how can we, to me, that might have been even funnier if they showed up as like, how can we turn this dramatic? And it takes you a second to realize, oh, those are the actors that were in Ragnarok. But either way, I think you're right. Like we didn't need two scenes with Luke and Matt for sure.
Yeah, like either I would have kept honestly the let's go over Ragnarok again. I would have kept that, but took out the scene where they're like, hey, how do we work this? I don't know. I felt like we didn't get enough of we got a montage, but it didn't feel like we really got to see like King Valkyrie also.
Mm-hmm.
That was the thing. Like I said, I just think she got sidelined because they were like, Jane,
right,
we're gonna do Mighty Thor.
But the trailer kind of intimated that you would see more like Jane Valkyrie team up.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't get that. I was at the very least, if we're not going to get having Jane was going to just by nature sacrifice Valkyrie's story. But if we could have had Valkyrie and Jane kind of do some badass stuff, that would have been cool.
I mean, they probably did if Taika said he's
filming. Yeah, right. There's 4 hours left on the cutting room floor.
And he already said he doesn't want to a director's cut type of thing, which
Again, trolling Zack Snyder because he was like, director's cuts are stupid.
Well, I mean, I think sometimes, yes, I feel like it depends. There's some director cuts that are great, and then there's others that aren't. And it's always hard to gauge what is which for what movie, what would be better, what isn't. And I just kind of agree with him that it's kind of best to leave it as it is. Yeah, because it causes this whole not everything is gonna necessarily, I don't know, Zack Snyder's stuff was, I think, different than maybe some other
right. Yeah, and he wasn't, before we get hate mail, he wasn't really trolling Zack Snyder when he said director's cuts are stupid. He just meant, sometimes directors need to be reined in, and he says he's glad that he was. So there's that. Any final thoughts on Thor Love and Thunder before we take a break and move on to the other Marvel thing that we have to talk about?
I just I know that we kind of nitpicked a lot of things, but I overall very much enjoyed it. It was fun. I definitely think it was definitely one of the better movies from the MCU so far in this phase, I will say. But yeah, I think Ragnarok might be just a little bit. Yeah. But I'm excited for Thor 5. I'm not like some other people where they're like, just no more Thor. Because I've seen a lot of people are just like, they don't want Thor anymore because of, where they've taken it. But I like it. I want more Valkyrie. Very excited to see more Brett Goldstein, obviously, because that's my favorite dude on Ted Lasso. So yeah.
Cool. Well, like I said, I enjoyed it. I thought the soundtrack was dope. I didn't realize it was going to be all Guns N' Roses all the time. The Sweet Child of Mine is a big part of the trailer.
There was one non-Guns N' Roses song, but I won't spoil it for those who haven't seen the movie.
Wait, hold on. What was the non-Guns N' Roses song?
It's the song that Valkyrie actually plays on her little portable boombox thingy.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
There will be no hateration in this dancery. That's all I'll say. But yeah, but Sweet Child of Mine is not the only Guns N' Roses classic that I would say this though. I wasn't quite sure what the Guns N' Roses connection was, other than the fact that they made Heimdall's son a huge Axl Rose fan for some reason.
Yeah.
But because the Led Zeppelin thing made sense in Ragnarok, right? Because that song is about fucking Asgard. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I don't get what connection Guns N' Roses has with Thor.
It just probably he felt it fit the vibe more.
I guess.
Movie, trying to keep in the classic rock realm.
Right. I mean, the Led Zeppelin in Ragnarok was a little on the nose, but yeah, it's fine. I dug it. I thought it worked really well. The November Rain stuff was particularly good. So anyway, that's Love and Thunder. I do want to come back after the break and talk about episode 5 of Ms. Marvel and share a little bit of my thoughts, because I know I've been missing the last few. You've covered the other episodes of Ms. Marvel, so I'll share some of my how I feel about the show as we head into the finale and talk about the most recent episode starring Kamala's grandma right after the break. Guess what? Goalie Nutrition is sponsoring Hard Knock Life, and you can go to goalie.com to buy apple cider vinegar gummies, they're ashwagandha gummies, superfruit gummies, and super greens gummies, and you get 10% off plus free shipping if you use the code HARDKNOCK at goalie.com. This is honestly, I've been taking the goalie gummies now for a couple weeks, and I have to say, they're tasty and they're good for you. Have you guys been enjoying the goalie gummies?
I really like them. They're yummy, but it's a nice to add to my routine of already I normally take just straight vitamin C, so it's nice to have extra supplements.
For a long time, people have praised the benefits of apple cider vinegar. And, as someone who's had to drink straight apple cider vinegar sometimes when I'm not feeling well, or, I have some joint pain and your mom is like, drink some apple cider vinegar. It's not the most appetizing home remedy, let's just say.
Right. It tastes horrible.
So, the apple cider part is ooh, does it taste like apple cider? And it's no, it tastes like vinegar. But ACV is very good for you. And the fact that Goalie has been able to put the ACV into these tasty little gummies made with pectin and fruit peels, which make them vegan, which is cool. So if you're vegan, you can still rock these gummies, because everyone knows gummies are usually made out of gelatin and nasty shit. These are made out of complete non-GMO, gelatin-free, gluten-free, vegan ingredients, and you can get the benefits, all of the benefits of apple cider vinegar, taking these tasty, delicious, convenient gummies. So go to goalie.com and use the code HARDKNOCK, that's HARDNOC, just like the podcast you're listening to. Get 10% off your purchase of Goalie products and free shipping.
It's a much better delivery device for that apple cider vinegar.
Yeah.
These Goalie gummies are great. You get it, and it's a delicious little candy. And I've been enjoying the Superfruits one. I did feel kind of refreshed after taking a few of those.
Yeah, no, but I'm loving them so far, and they're definitely tasty. If you just want tasty gummies, at least just eat them for the yumminess.
Yeah. So go to goalie.com, use the code HARDKNOCK, HARDNOC, get 10% off your purchase and free shipping at goalie.com with the code HARDKNOCK. Hard Knock Life is being sponsored by Athletic Greens. I want to talk to you about Athletic Greens. With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. Basically all the things. One of the best things about Athletic Greens is that it's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. It also contains less than 1 gram of sugar and no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, and it still tastes good. Athletic Greens uses the best of the best products based on the latest science with constant product iterations and third-party testing. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day, that's it. No need for a million different pills or supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is partnering with Hard Knock Media to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/emerging. That's athleticgreens.com/emerging to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. And we're back. Who else is back? Back in time. Kamala Khan. We ended episode 4 with her somehow ending up in the past. And episode 5 starts off. We don't see Kamala for the whole episode because it's basically a flashback episode to how her grandparents met, essentially. Her great-grandparents.
Yes.
Because it's a love story. And I know that I haven't been on to talk about episodes 3 and 4, but I'll have to say episode 5 might have been my favorite of all of them. I think it was the best directed and best paced. Because some of my issues, I think, as we were saying with Thor: Love and Thunder, I feel like some of the editing choices are a little kind of wild. Like they just cover so much stuff in so little time. And I feel like this episode, they really kind of slowed down, even though it covered a long period. Like it covered Aisha's meeting Hassan and then falling in love and then having a kid and all the way to partition and then how she died. Like it covered all that story, but it was paced so well. It comes off like this very romantic, heartbreaking story.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have some qualms, I guess, with the time travel aspect, because I thought there's a well-established time travel rule in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I won't be nitpicky there. Because just, again, spoilers, Kamala was always the reason her grandmother survived.
Yeah, I remember we talked about this. It is the lost theory of it happened the way it was supposed to, like, because they talk about how, you know, how they time travel in Lost, and they're there for like back in the 70s when the Dharma Initiative first started.
Mm-hmm.
And then they end up on the island again, blah, blah, blah. It's because it's just, that's the way it's supposed to happen.
But time travel in the MCU is branch realities, right? That's what established an Endgame. That's what they talk about in the TVA. Like, how is there a closed loop time travel in the MCU?
Because that's what it sort of was in a way. The only loop that wasn't closed was Loki messing up things. Everything else is a certain timeline. So the Loki that in his show is not the Loki that is actually in the proper MCU timeline. Right.
He's the one who escaped when the Avengers went back and he picks up the Tesseract.
And then you have Loki. So you do have the TVA people who every now and then, if something deviates too much from a certain timeline, they go and fix it. So there's probably certain things that aren't going to mess up the timeline, and that probably Kamala going back in time is not going to affect the big like timeline that they're trying to protect, so they don't worry about it. Or like you said, the writers just didn't think about it. But I mean, you know, yeah, that's why I figured certain things when I'm just like, okay, it's like Lost.
Yeah. No, I mean, narratively, and at the end of the day, right, like it's nerd shit that gets caught up in, like, well, the time travel rule, blah, blah, blah. But narratively, it was beautiful that Kamala was the star. I mean, they telegraphed that from the beginning, you know, like you kind of knew when they tell the story about Sana sees the stars to her father. Well, hey, doesn't Kamala's powers look like hard light? You know, so you kind of knew that, especially when Kamala shows up in the past in the last episode. So you kind of knew that's where they were going. But the way it was executed, and like I said, if you got to break your rules to do a beautiful story, break your rules, because the beautiful story will always trump any kind of continuity rule.
Oh, 100%. I love this episode. I know I've been kind of like, I really liked the first episode. And then I think I was kind of like, I don't know. And now I'm back in the like, this is just.
That's right, because your qualms were more about like, because you're such a fan of the comics, you were worried it was deviating a little too much, or not deviating so much, but like you have your own set of expectations being a fan of the comic that it's kind of hard to meet when watching any adaptation.
Yes, and that's why I brought up like last week with Nate how, like, you know, my favorite Twilight book was New Moon, and that movie to me is the worst one. Or my favorite, you know, Harry Potter book was Order of the Phoenix, and that movie to me is like the worst one too. So yeah, I feel like your expectations are different when you've read the source material, and sometimes it's easy for me to be like, I'm going with the flow, this is great, this is cool. But yeah, I think also my problem is that I know that they are trying to speed up so much for why it makes sense that she's going to be a big player in the Marvels.
Right.
That's why I feel like they're expediting things with her.
Yeah, even the Red Dagger stuff isn't this early in the comics, right? Like,
yeah, no,
he's had like 2 runs before she meets Red Dagger.
Yeah, he's a little bit like later on from what I remember. So, but I do like, you know, Artemis.
Yeah, shout out. You're right. One thing I was regretting not being on last week's episode because you know me, I am a huge Into the Badlands fan, and Into the Badlands, like the Nerds of Color is probably, even according to like the cast and crew of Into the Badlands, like the biggest booster of that show when it was on the air, because we used to interact with the writers and Al Goff, the co-creator of the show, and all the stars. Like when we were like live tweeted,
I live tweeted, was it season 2 for a little bit or something? Like I did some live tweets for the show through the account. Like I love.
We were huge boosters of that show, and to see MK on Ms. Marvel getting his shine. And what's interesting is Daniel Wu, who played Sonny on Into the Badlands, has a role in this season of Westworld on HBO. So it's just kind of nice. And of course, Louis Tan is going to be on the new season of Shadow and Bone. So it's just kind of cool to see like the Into the Badlands cast kind of get their shine in other genre places.
Yeah, I love seeing them in other places. MK and Daniel Wu are obviously like two like probably people's most like favorites. They're kind of your two main characters, or they are the two main characters.
Yeah.
But
well, MK kind of like falls off as a main character.
Yeah.
In the later seasons, but
yeah, no, I just loved seeing MK artists.
Yeah, Aramis Knight.
So I was like, yes. I think he was the better like part of episode 4, even though I wasn't super like 100% vibing with everything with episode 4, but episode 5 was just, it was beautiful. I wish Hyatt, she was just wonderful, and just she was great, and the chemistry between her and the grandpa,
Hassan,
yes, they were just, it was wonderful. Like
I'm saying though, like Marvel has, I think, stumbled upon the secret ingredient is hot Asian romance stories, because Tony Leung and Fala Chen are the best part of Shang-Chi.
Yes.
And Fawad Khan and Mewish Hayat are the best part of Ms. Marvel. Like,
so far,
just give me a movie of how Wenwu and his wife met, and give me a movie of how Aisha and her husband met. We don't need Shang-Chi. We don't need Ms. Marvel. We just need how did their grandparents meet? That's all that matters.
Or their parents.
Or their parents, right? Because the hottest people in the MCU are like thousands of years old. and two, like that's just all we need. We don't need superheroes or anything else. We just need the romance story set in partitioned India and ancient China. That's all we need.
Yeah, it was beautiful. They were so good. The chemistry was just popping. So whoever knows maybe their filmography, if you know they've ever actually done like a romance movie together, let me know, because I would watch it ASAP. I will watch it. Yeah.
Well, and ironically, there is a 10 Rings connection to Ms. Marvel. As I think it might have been mentioned in a previous episode, the temple where they found the bangle has the 10 Rings logo on the floor. So
yeah, I had said that.
Maybe there's maybe when Wu shows up in episode 6, maybe, I don't know. I don't think they can afford Tony Leung for a Disney Plus show.
Especially if I'm pretty sure Captain Marvel.
Yeah, Brie Larson. If Brie Larson doesn't show up, I will eat a shoe.
Yeah. Got to do it live.
Yeah, I'll do it on camera. It'll be on YouTube and everything.
But no, I just really love this episode. I thought it was so beautiful, and and then now Kamala and her mom are on the same spot. Like, it's just everything was done really well, and May Wish is just beautiful. She's gorgeous. I think she might be the most like beautiful actress the MCU's have like ever hired. Like, she's crazy beautiful.
Partly want more Aisha stories because I'm a little saddened that she passed away, because that's the most compelling character. And this is no shade to the other ones on the show, but just the 20 some minutes she's in this episode, she's the most compelling.
Yeah, she was done dirty, like straight up. But yeah,
let me ask you about Kamran's mom in the episode, because you and Swara and you and Dominic have been kind of on the show's case for kind of glossing over their inhuman backstory, right? Like the powers and everything. At the very least, I got the sense that they kind of like hint at it, because both of the Jinn who died in this episode, like they look like they're in the cocoon, right? Like,
yep. I was like, wait a minute, maybe they are inhuman now, because remember I told you that what's her name, Gemma from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that she was spotted near Secret Invasion filming, and she was around there. So I was just like, is she gonna be on Secret Invasion? So maybe they are. And then Simu and Chloe have been kind of hanging out.
They've been hanging out. I know, right?
So I'm just like, and I know it's like us we could be just overthinking things and it's just coincidence, but at the same time, it's like, but is it though?
Right. Or it could also be like Simu just like giving props to the original Asian superheroes in Marvel, because he also did a carpool karaoke with Jessica Henwick, who was the original Iron Fist. She is the only Iron Fist. Sorry.
I'm sorry, but we have to admit they're gonna bring him back.
If they bring anybody back, they bring Jessica Henwick back, because she's Iron Fist, goddammit. And then he was hanging out with Chloe Bennett on Instagram. So who knows?
We have to accept that man is coming back.
I don't even remember his name.
We just have to accept it, because I didn't think that we
He
would
ain't coming
probably
back.
see Luke Cage again, but I think he's coming back.
No.
Not that there was anything wrong. I like Luke Cage, but yeah, when I was like, no, I'm pretty sure we'll probably get Jessica and Matt, but no, I'm pretty sure we're getting all of
No,
them
Mr.
back.
Jones is a Counting Crows song, and that's all it will ever be. It will never be back in the MC. Anyway, we're getting off track. The the Terrigen Mist piece, right? Like it seemed like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
they at least hint at it if they don't go anywhere else with it.
Yes, that's why I was like, me and Swar only talked briefly, but we were both like, amazing episode, no notes. We were both like, no notes. So yeah, or at least when I don't know, maybe he might have notes that he didn't like share with me, but like I was just like, yeah, this is the best episode.
Yeah, and let's hope they stick the landing in the next episode, because
I'm really hoping so, because episode 5 is so strong.
Right, episode 6 has to, other than the Brie Larson cameo, they have to wrap things up. Is Kamran going to turn evil? Maybe.
I don't know.
He's on the run from the DO or damage control, so
I don't know how much we're gonna see more, if we're gonna see more of Armis. I really hope so.
like there's a love triangle already between Bruno, Kamran, and Kamala. We should just make it a love square and add Red Dagger, because no shade to Bruno and Kamran, I feel like she had the best chemistry with Red Dagger. So
yep, I agree, she has the best chemistry with him. So
and they're romantic in the comics too, right? Like,
yeah, I think
there's a whole storyline where Red Dagger becomes like an exchange student in New Jersey, I think
so. I think kind of when he started showing up is when like I like maybe stopped reading and then yeah, and it's not that I didn't like the Red Dagger character, I just started getting behind on comics,
right?
And then I started to go back into reading books, and now I have like tons of books to read, as we know. So
yeah. So episode 5, super strong. They have one episode left to wrap it up, and then a whole year before the Marvels, which is like part of the weird Marvel schedule now. Is that the same thing with like WandaVision ended, and it took a year for her to show up in Doctor Strange.
Well, because remember the first show was supposed to be Falcon and the
right. Well, that's what I mean. Like the whole schedule is all jumbled now.
But they had to cut out a whole entire storyline for the Winter Soldier. So,
and we were tripping out earlier before we started recording about the fact that Black Panther is the next movie in the MCU.
Yeah,
we haven't seen anything other than you and Nate talking about the Namor reveal last week, but we don't know any. I was expecting a trailer at the very least, or a teaser.
I feel like maybe they are kind of. I feel like maybe they're just kind of scared on it, just because they're like, because there are people who are very much like, nah, just recast him right away.
Yeah, that's a tough.
I have to say, recasting him right away is still to me disrespectful.
Well, and I mean, we've talked about this on this show. Like, part of the problem with the MC, because I see the argument that like, well, we've had 6 Batman and we've had 3 Spider-Man, but the MCU is fundamentally different from these past movie universes, right? Like, the whole point of the MCU is that, aside from a couple instances with like Terrence Howard or Edward Norton, characters just aren't recast in this series, because the appeal of the MCU is seeing Chris Evans as Captain America, or Steve Rogers, as seeing RDJ as Tony Stark, as seeing, as much as you dislike her, Scarlett Johansson as Natasha, right? Like, it's not just the character. Batman movies, James Bond movies.
There's only one character that I'm like, I think that they could have recast or had someone else and it would have been even better, was Hawkeye, Jensen Ackles. Like,
well, you also have your Jeremy Renner bias.
Yeah, but I will say I loved him in the show Hawkeye. Like,
yeah.
That one,
well, you know what I mean, though. Like, they put so much weight in like the personalities of the actors. Like we talked earlier about Chris Hemsworth. The reason the Thor movies were able to evolve is they was able to like embody Chris Hemsworth. It's not the same as like having 4 different Batman, because those movies, even the ones that are supposed to be connected, aren't really connected. You know what I mean? James Bond, those movies aren't connected. The Spider-Man movies were not connected. So absolutely, Black Panther needs to be treated on the same level as these other characters. However, the MCU just doesn't operate like that. And that's the problem.
I feel like it is going to be a variant person who is going to play him, because it's not going to be this established Earth's like.
Yeah, it has to be too. Like,
that's what's going to happen. It's going to be a different T'Challa from a different Earth, and it's not going to be this one. Unfortunately, I know that's going to probably upset some people still,
But I don't know what do you want, right? Like, because you can't resurrect Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah, and I would be highly pissed if they used like, the CGI stuff that they did with like Carrie Fisher and in Rogue One and whatnot. Like,
and Star Wars is a great example, right? Because Carrie Fisher died after Rogue One or during, like, before Rogue One came out.
Yes, but Rogue One was completed.
Right. And then, like, they could have just recast her, right? It's the same argument. Why didn't you just recast Princess Leia? She's going to be a big part of Episode 9. You can't, because Carrie Fisher is Princess Leia. You know what I'm saying? Yes. It's the same idea here. You can't just recast it because. And
the only person who I think would be a good replacement for Carrie Fisher, she's only 10 years old right now.
exactly. Like... and at the time she was 3.
Yeah, so it's just like,
right. I mean, I get it. I understand why, because like a lot of people making that argument are not necessarily versed in, the nerd world. And they say, like, we can have 3 Spider-Man, 7 Batman, 10 James Bond.
They're coming from this character is just so important to Black nerds and Black people in general that it's like, we do need T'Challa. We need the T'Challa in the Black Panther suit. So I understand that.
Yeah,
but I
absolutely.
still think it's too soon and that it should just be a variant, not that.
Yeah.
Because I know that, yes, I think Chadwick would in some way want the character to go on,
sure.
But I don't think he would want some weird bad CGI of him. And then I don't know. I feel like, maybe part of him would hope that they would respect him a little bit and maybe give some time in between. So I get that it's kind of like a weird, frustrating,
It's tricky, right? And again, it's if the MCU wasn't what it is, where it's this kind of like, say what you will, but continuity is a big part of the show, of the series, of the franchise, right?
Yeah.
And to your point about like, they've given themselves an out now with the multiverse. You can just use a variant and not skip a beat.
Yeah, and you can have them look different, even though in Doctor Strange is kind of established most of them all look alike.
But then No Way Home establishes that they can look different too. Yes. And that was my complaint about Multiverse of Madness, is that like, this is an opportunity to like cast. You didn't have to have my man Benedict play 7 different Doctor Stranges. You could just have a whole bunch of Doctor Stranges.
Could have made people happy and have one be Oded Fair. They could have been happy.
Brought Keanu in for one.
Ethan Hawke.
That is
Joaquin,
my like. Bring Joaquin in. Yeah.
No.
I would have. I mean, I was like hoping for a Keanu Doctor Strange appearance. But you talked about What If earlier. That established that, like, Don Cheadle was Rhodey during Iron Man 1 in a different universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, you can tell yourself that, like, well, why did they recast Don Cheadle? Why did they recast Mark Ruffalo? Well, they're variants. We just following a different branch reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you look back during the What If episode set during Incredible Hulk, it was Mark Ruffalo, not Ed Norton. So like, that's the kind of stuff you have to like turn on your nerd brain and not let the kind of real world get mixed into it, because it's just like, you have to, if there's a story reason, use the story reason to respect that. I mean, no one anticipated one of the main actors who was supposed to carry the franchise into the future was going to die.
No, I mean, he kept that secret for a reason, because if they had known, they would have already like talked to him about.
They probably wouldn't have cast him, honestly.
They
what I'm saying?
Have cast him, or they would have already come through with like contingencies or whatever.
That was a surprise, and
But I've thought more about what Nate said about maybe John David Washington, and maybe I still feel like, I don't know, maybe if it was a variant for sure, but I don't know. I feel like there's someone. Someone else
it's too much. I mean, especially again with the whole like concept of the multiverse, the fact that like Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield exist in the MCU because of the multiverse, it gives you a reason that if John David Washington, you can't have John David Washington show up tomorrow and say that that's the T'Challa that we've been following the last 7 years. It's just not going to work.
It has to be a variant.
It has to be a variant.
I think he has to be a variant. Like if he's in a variant as a variant T'Challa, I feel like I will allow it.
And going back to like Don Cheadle and Mark Ruffalo, like the only reason that those were able to kind of like, work without having to use any kind of story reason is that one, Rhodey wasn't that big a character after Iron Man 1, right? And then the Incredible Hulk is not seen as that. I mean, the movie is seen as continuity because William Hurt, Tim Roth are all coming back, right? But it was early enough in the MCU that like if they recast, it doesn't affect anything. Mark Ruffalo's been Bruce Banner way longer than Ed Norton. Don Cheadle's been Rhodey way longer than Terrence Howard. At this point, if you were to recast them, it would be weird, you know?
Yeah, recasting them would be just
Yeah, so that's the thing, and you know, but again, I understand, but it's just it is what it is. Anyway,
maybe controversial, but I do think that I liked episode 5 of Miss Marvel more than Thor: Love and Thunder. Not to say
no, that's not controversial. That's the truth.
Not to say that I didn't like Thor: Love and Thunder because I really loved it.
No. That is objective reality. Like it was way better executed than Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah, I do have to say episode 5 was like the bigger like. Some people might be like, it's a show, but I'm sorry that episode 5 was just everything I like superhero stuff. I like time travel. I love romances with actually
with beautiful people,
chemistry. Like because I think Natalie and Chris are both beautiful people, but like I feel like their chemistry is not really there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, that's part of the reason why like the Jane stuff didn't work and why she left the series to begin with, you know.
I feel like they may have tried more to make it work on screen so it wasn't as bad as like the previous
like
times.
Dark World, yeah.
But yeah, like their chemistry isn't like it was not on the level of this chemistry that
Did you read that Taika had asked Natalie if she would be in his Star Wars movie? And she was like, did you not know I'm in the prequels? I'm Amidala. He was like, oh,
what?
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Because you know he's doing a Star Wars movie.
Yes,
He was like,
I know.
He was like, you should be in my Star Wars movie, and she was like, I'm Amidala, motherfucker.
Oh my god, that's
I'm Luke's mom. What are you talking about? Anyway, Brittany, what's nerd popping?
I finished the Umbrella Academy.
Oh, okay.
Like probably like a day or two after we had finished recording, and I really loved it. I can't wait for a new season. And I did not realize that, like I talked about, I didn't realize that was Greg from Degrassi playing the one character. But yeah, I really like the Umbrella Academy, and I feel like not enough people are watching it. So please,
because the other superhero show that people give a shit about is I haven't been watching. I know you've been watching. It was the thumbnail for last week, right? The Boys. And you mentioned Jensen Ackles, so
that was so good too as well. The season finale was great. They did not play Crank That Soldier Boy. So I need to talk to the music supervisor or the creative team, because I don't know if it's because like maybe not enough higher up people are Black, so they didn't think about that. Or they were like, we might lose our audience if we do that. But I'm just like, but it's perfect.
I mean, like after an episode like Herogasm and the opening of the season when like a guy's penis blows up, Soldier Boy is about like coming on some girl's back, right? Isn't that what that song's about? So like it would have been perfect.
I feel like if they knew exactly what the Superman the Hoe is about, then they would have probably been like, yo, yes, him entering the fight scene in Herogasm was the perfect moment to play it, but they didn't. So I was hoping maybe they have it saved somewhere in episode 5. I don't know why they didn't think about it, but
I think that not enough Black people working on The Boys might be the reason.
Yes. So if they hear this, do it.
I'm sure there's someone. Hey, at the very least, if you want to do a fan edit, we can post that on the Nerds of Colors YouTube channel. and then get demonetized because we're copyright infringement and everything.
Yes. But and put Jensen Ackles and more things. Like now that straight men who maybe didn't watch Supernatural see that he's actually talented. Yes, cast him in more things and find someone for him to be in the MCU or DCEU. I don't know. Just do it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Jensen Ackles, and you guys were talking about his history, not just in Supernatural, but on Smallville. My Nerd Poppin' is a brand new podcast that's launching this week, starring Michael Rosenbaum and Tom Welling, going through and rewatching the entire Smallville backlog episode by episode, called Talkville. Like, wow. I'm so excited for this. Basically, so for those of you who may not know, Brittany and I used to host a podcast called DC TV Classics, where we would talk about all the old school DC TV shows. And I was a huge Smallville nerd, so I always try to like weave Smallville into every conversation, no matter what DC TV classic show we were talking about. And this is basically the platonic ideal of what I wanted the DC TV podcast to be, because it was It was basically going through.
I kept saying, "Hey,
we should have done episode
saying,
rewatch.
Let's go on and talk about each season of Smallville or something," and it just never happened.
Couldn't get around to it, but now, I mean, who cares what Brittany and Keith think about the episode 4 of season 1 of Smallville when you have Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum talking about each episode? So I'm very excited for this podcast. It's going to give me a reason to go back and rewatch Smallville again. So it's called Talkville, and you can subscribe to it. I'll put a link in the description. It launches, I think, on the 13th, which is in a couple days if you're listening to this when this episode drops. So check out Talkville and listen to Lex and Clark wax poetic on their experience. It's going to be a fun podcast. You should check it out. It's called Talkville. That's that podcast. This podcast is Hard Knock Life. Brittany Monet, how can people find you on the internet?
Well, you can find me at Hi Brittany Monet on most social media platforms, and then you can check out at Naomi Podcast, which is now the backlog of Naomi Podcasts, the backlog of Black Lightning, and then when we do new episodes of The Lituation Room, all in one place. And that is pretty much it for right now.
Nice. I am Keith Chow. You can find me on Twitter at @TheRealChow, _real_Chow, and on Instagram at RealKeithChow. Follow the Nerds of Color at the Nerds of Color, and go to hardknockmedia.com to find this and all of the podcasts in the Hard Knock family. Go to youtube.com/the Nerds of Color to check out our videos, and support us on patreon.com/the Nerds of Color. That's Hard Knock Life. Until next time.
Get some infinity cones.
While you're visiting Paradise City.
Yes.
Where the grass is green and the girls are pretty.